I am Jeff Tidball with Atlas Games. Kyla McTee and I are talking today about Cogs and Commissars. We want to show you some of the different faction decks that are available in this game to play. Which one of these is your favorite?
I have been playing with Gore Robot, Jeff. He lets you produce an additional citizen on your turn if anyone has more points than you. So he's not trying to be in the lead, and he picks a lot of cards that mess with other people's hands and mess with their citizens, and just creating chaos.
Right on. So Simulant is one that plays a little bit like that in terms of messing with other people's stuff. There are a bunch of cards, and each one of these decks is custom built to go with the leader's abilities. So Simulant says every time you play a card with the word counter in it, you draw a card. And so these are not necessarily even counter cards per se. So everybody's deck has 4 counter propagandas in them. So every time Simulant plays one of those counter propagandas, gets to draw another card. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the deck. So Stifle Free Speech is Cogs and Commissars' basic counter card. It doesn't have counter in the title, but that doesn't matter because the ability is counter any card. So anytime you do that, you get to draw another card. Control the Media is a good deck churning card. That one says take up to 2 propaganda or counter propaganda cards from your deck, show them, put them in your hand. So because that has the word counter in there, every time you do that, it's going to be more cards back into your hand. Even this one, Upload Red Error, is a card that lets you send cards to the Gulag, but because it triggers off of how many counter propaganda cards you have in your discard pile, it is mentioned on there, and so that lets me draw more cards again. And Doublespeak, which is one of my favorite cards and one that we talked about in a previous video, lets you swap the word counter for the word duplicate. So if you counter my card, I can change your counter card to the word duplicate, and because that word is on there, that gets me to draw more cards. So Simulant's deck is full of these cards that interact with counters and then trigger my ability and let me do all kinds of awesome stuff. So how about Andropov?
So Andropov lets you increase your maximum hand size for each counter propaganda card in your discard pile. So initially he'll want to be playing all of the counter propaganda cards that he can. And there's also cards, so once he gets all 4 of those in his discard pile, his hand size is now 11. And he can make all sorts of cool combos because he'll have all the cards that he needs. You also mentioned Control the Media. That lets you take the counter propaganda cards out of your deck and get them out here in your discard pile to get your hand size as big as you can to pull off all the cool combos.
Right, and these decks are not large. These are 30-card decks, right?
Correct.
So you've got 6 cards there that even if counter propaganda is not in your hand, you're going to be able to find them quickly and get them right into your discard pile so that you can increase your hand size, which lets you find more even faster.
Exactly.
That is awesome. So my favorite name out of any of these faction leaders is the Artificial Style Intelligence card. And this faction leader has a very interesting ability. Every time a bourgeoisie counter is sent to the Gulag, and those are the 2-point citizens, then Artificial Style Intelligence can either gain a proletariat or draw a card, and gets to do that for every bourgeoisie that goes to the Gulag. And so there are some awesome cards that let you rack up tons and tons of cards or points as that goes. So Call the Bourgeoisie is one. That one says that anytime other players have to send a bourgeoisie to the Gulag, and if they can't, they have to discard cards. So if we're playing in a 4 or a 5-player game, and I play this, and everybody else sends a bourgeoisie, that's getting me 4 or 5 proletariats or 4 or 5 card draws, and so that can be a huge thing. There's multiple copies of that in here. And then Enforce Equality can be an interesting one for this particular deck. I choose a citizen type. I'm pretty much always going to choose bourgeoisie because that's how I'm getting these effects. And then other players have to send their citizens of the type I chose to the Gulag until they have the same number as me. So I'm going to avoid taking bourgeoisie myself if I can. And if I'm in a large multiplayer game and everybody has 1 or 2 or 3 of those, I can make a huge impact on their totals, and I can draw a ton of cards or accumulate a ton of proletariats in the meantime. So this deck is a lot of fun to play also.
Now that could be a nasty card if you play it at the right moment.
And there are 2 other factions that will unlock as stretch goals in this Kickstarter campaign. So there are even 2 more that are coming. You can read about those online or check them out in the print and play version, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So that is some of the factions in Cogs and Commissars.